I call this special board workshop meeting to order at 5:06 p.m. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call. All directors are present. Moving on to agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
The only change to the agenda tonight is there will be no acceptance of the draft capital plan, just a review. And that is due to the internet being out tonight for being accessible to the public online.
All right, thank you. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move the agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor of motion to approve, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Moving on to public comment. We have no members of the public in person this evening. So we will move on to item 3, budget workshop review of the draft capital plan. Mr. Burks.
Thank you. I'm going to have are the microphones working, Don? Okay. Okay, I'll have each of the departments run through the 10-year capital improvement plan. We have the enterprise capital improvement plans and the governmental funds. And these have all been reviewed through each committee with comments made. So you'll see any of the changes tonight in red. For the most part, I think probably 99% of it, it's just been moved, either bumped back a year or bumped up a year. And our rate structure that we have right now was based on the capital plan for the next 5 years. So there shouldn't be really any changes with that. One of the things we will have is Habib Isaac will be reviewing where we're at with our rate structure and with the income that we've received over the last year and when the plan went into place. So that will be brought to the board at a later date too. But tonight we'll just be reviewing the capital improvement projects.
All right, thank you.
And if you'd like, Sean, do you want to start off with yours?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Burks. All right, on page 3. On page 3 of our packet, we have our enterprise capital improvement projects. Line 1 is our chromium mitigation. Some notables on here. You notice well 12's Packer slid over to this fiscal year. Packers do have a finite life. It's like a big fancy balloon. They typically last 5 to 7 years. The longer we can hold off on doing this, and there's also a secondary reason. Staff is exploring costs on a couple of different routes other than profiling well 12 that may be more cost effective and or including an agenda item that might be up tomorrow night. Even exploring drilling another new well, so there's no ongoing, it'd be a one-time capital expenditure versus, if we were to profile, we will always have the maintenance of that Packer and or some, it's treatmentless treatment, if that makes sense. There's a company out there that's really trying to streamline the permitting of ion exchange. They took the ion exchange regenerative process out of the treatment plant, mounted it on a truck. We started getting some preliminary numbers today. That really does not seem like a cost-effective option. We'll include that in our next staff report because those came in late today. But we have an agenda item tomorrow night. We'll really dip into that one. Well, number 18, that staff has acquired property and we're in the middle of CEQA. That's part of our comprehensive chromium mitigation. And the new storage reservoir up there on 6A, just at the top of the hill. That kind of bumps us down into line 2. And George, take it from here.
Thank you, Sean. Civic Center project, the item number 2. We have outlined the construction management services for 2020 or 2025, 2026, as well as construction. This project is close to moving forward with the bidding process. First steps will be the construction management services, and immediately after that would be the construction of the Civic Center. $8 million is set aside for the construction of the project and $500,000 for the management services. If you want, Sean, any questions on the Civic Center? you want, John, I'll move forward with the water master plan.
Sure.
Item number 3, identified in the water master plan that was prepared in 2020, listed a few projects that were a recommendation, critical, none were critical, but recommendation, and then build out. We've had this on our CIP table for a couple of years, and we would move these items out as we planned them out. And we're going to also just keep in place item number 3 for 2728, and those are the reservoirs 7A and L1 on the upsize to increase capacity. On item number 4, we look at this, or my personal opinion, I look at these as what should be covered under the cost of a contractor or development for improving the system to improve fire flow capacity. This was identified in the water master plan between 2022 and 2027. We tend to kind of move these out year by year, and this is what we're doing as well. We're moving these out another year. We found some replacement of an existing 6-inch line with an 8-inch, and then new installs is listed in those other 4 in item number 4. Item number 5, these are the pipelines. Again, this is all replacement. When we look at capacity, we bring up storage, we have water. We need to get that water out as we see growth. So this is why you see this pushed out to 33 to 43 in years from now, actually, when we get into our next update on our water master plan. And that's also the update on our hydraulic model. That'll be reevaluated with the new well coming into the system with well 15 and the other new wells that we kind of brought in as well. We would look at that and again, look at projection on growth, and things change over 10 years. That pretty much sums it up for the water master plan projects that were identified as recommendations. I'll leave item number 6 to Mr. Wright.
I have a few questions.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. So basically you're waiting for the water master plan to be updated so you can tighten up the schedule on the pipeline replacements, because that's going to determine what size they need to be upgraded to meet flow and demand, fire flow and demand.
Most likely will not change. There will be some changes, minor.
Okay.
The model that we have now is pretty tight, but there's always here and there. We do field testing to kind of validate what the model produces as far as fire flow.
Yeah, because I see some of these are going from 6 to 12. And that's a pretty good upsize. So that
Part-
tells me there's flow restrictions in the system based on the model.
Well, part of that is they identified an area which is called industrial that probably wasn't in the plan originally.
Okay.
So being at industrial, you've got to look at fire flow. I think it's 3,500 GPMs. So that was taken into consideration with the water master plan update in 2020.
And what's the area referred to as industrial?
That would be the northwest, just north of Phelan, probably where the transfer site is
Okay,
at
all right.
in that area.
Okay.
If you look at in the water master plan, there is an exhibit identifying these pipelines to be located, and mostly all those are within that area,
All right.
which is just west of Malpaso.
Thank you, George.
I'd like to elaborate on your comments on that as well. We did have the hydraulic model ran to simulate a well 18 as a successful drill on the property we acquired at about 715 gallons a minute, just kind of mimicking exactly what we're seeing out of 15. We don't really see the velocity over about 8 foot per second, and most of the pressures are all pressures would be well within Title 22. Most are well within their specific pipe rating capacity. There's 1 or 2 low areas that might creep over about 150 in a worst case scenario. But we do have as you notice on here, like White Fox Trail, Monero and Pine Arrow, we have a couple of little bottlenecks that these do help identify.
Okay. Yeah, I'm used to velocities not wanting to be higher than 5 feet per second in a pipe. So, all right. Thank you.
Just to add on that with the new proposed well 18 and 15 online, what we're lacking is storage. And we know that it's going to be identified in the water master plan. We know that is what's kind of choking the system on the north side with the two wells that are potentially coming into play. What they're feeding right now, it's not meeting demand. So one will be feeding into the system, the other is feeding into the reservoir sites. So we're trying to push water out of that site as much as we can. We need boosters to push that out. So
Yeah, thank you.
Line 6, titled Fire Suppression. This was a very recent change at the last engineering committee meeting. This used to be titled Smith and Springs. So we had encapsulated this $25,000 in our rate structure. I've met with our sanitary engineer multiple times. Unfortunately, at 2, 3, 5 gallons a minute coming out of Smith and Springs, we will never be able to permit that as surface water. And I know 1 or 2 directors know how intrusive permitting surface water can be, and it's just not there for 5 gallons a minute. So we decided we're retitling this to fire suppression and helihydrants. With all the recent fires in our area, this will give staff an opportunity to chase grants. In fact, we have a meeting tomorrow. We're really trying to drive home the need for our community for, they call them helihydrant tanks or heli tanks. Basically, it's a fancy open top tank that has the remote clicker. So a helicopter can come in, click, fill up. We've identified 2 or 3 sites throughout the district. And we're really trying to pursue that because that would, that only benefits the community. As George mentioned on the need for more reservoirs and storage, line 7, we identified that future for land purchases. Although for simple and ease, we enrolled line 7 into line 1, bottom line under site 6 for CEQA and soil testing and land purchasing, just for kind of ease of the document. Line 8. Again, we do have a item on tomorrow night's agenda that's going to touch on staff requesting from the board future wells. We're really going to dip into that tonight. Tonight, kind of a little appetizer, if you will. We have laid out our future water needs for the next 5 to 10 years. Line 8 addresses that kind of long term. Tomorrow night, again, we're going to dip into, I guess, the meat and potatoes of a couple of options that the board will have. Line 9, our booster and appurtenance, fancy way of saying electrical panels there.
Apparatus.
Appurtenance.
Pertinence.
There, George got that one.
You're right.
Yeah, that word. So if you noticed a little bit of a jump from this year going into the next fiscal year, and why the jump? These are based on actual costs incurred. If we remember back, staff has requested from the board to purchase 2 full electrical panels in the last 6 months. We're doing that because the supply chain, some of these panels are up to a 24-month lead time, and the cost. So these are based off of real cost today, unfortunately. So it takes us into line 10. And again, that conversation right back to, what does water operations really need? An additional reservoir would help a lot. As Director Snyder pointed out, we do have some velocity out there. Some additional storage will help ease that burden. So we've tried to identify an area coming in a fiscal year 26, 27 for that. And I'll let George take lines 11, 12.
Item 11, the urban water management plan. This was budgeted for this fiscal year. We're kind of moving forward with working with Mojave Water Agency on a regional plan. And this was proposed a few months ago, and there was an appetite for all 11, 10, to soon to be 11, I believe, purveyors to be included in this regional plan. That would be very helpful since we work with Mojave on our plan. That they would just kind of oversee the other regions in their plans. That cost to us initially, there were two options. One is very little help in preparing our plan. Typically, we would hire a consultant to help us with the plan. And the other is provide full support and prepare the plan. We chose for the prepare the plan. So it kind of takes the burden off of the staff to kind of go out with RFP and solicit and work with a consultant when they have to work with Mojave Water Agency already. So that was set aside for 15,000 for next fiscal year. The outline or the guidelines for the plan should be out sometime in March and finalized in May. So that's when we begin work on our urban water management plan. The water master plan, as I had mentioned, that would be revisited every 10 years. Let me just kind of go back to the urban water management plan. That is a plan that's mandated by the state for a system that's over 3,000 connections or 3,000 acre feet of water a year of usage. So, of course, since day one, in 2010, we prepared our first urban water management plan as well as our water master plan. That is required to be prepared for every 5 years on the urban water management plan. The water master plan is every 10 years. And that is due in probably 29, 30, but we'll begin work on that in 28, 29. So we set aside 88,000 5 years from now. That could change. But that would also include the update on a hydraulic model.
George, are we going to partner with Mojave Water Agency and the other agencies that's doing the regional urban water management plan?
Yes, and that's where that 15,000 comes in, is their consultant kind of came back with what it would cost
Yeah,
for
that's
them
a
to
good
prepare that
price.
plan.
Yeah.
And it was, you were at that meeting.
Yeah, the
That's
county's
right,
gonna,
it just
county's
dawned on
gonna
me.
join in too.
That's right.
Yeah.
So they did come back with the number and it was 15,000. So
All right, thank you.
Any
any
questions on
questions on
page 3? Happy to answer any questions. That leads us into page 4, our enterprise capital purchases. In the years prior, especially in the last 5 years, we've really done the heavy lifting of our vehicle replacement plan. And it was the desire of the engineering committee to bring that plan back, just kind of dust off and take a glance again. So we'll have that at the next committee meeting. With that being said, moving into the fiscal year 25-26, operations, we pretty much have all the field trucks we need, and it doesn't fall. The plan calls out for replacing our valve machine this coming year. And that's where the $76,000, notice it just got slid from trucks up to equipment. It was a desire of the committee to see that delineated out in there. And we will have the vehicle replacement plan brought to the committee. And if it's the desire, we can bring it back to the board as well. But it lays out, we really notice our maintenance costs skyrocket after year 11. That's when the roads take their toll on our vehicles, just looking at our historicals. So we tried to build around that and cycle out that vehicle on its 11th year. So every 11th year, the field truck. So there's no more doubling up in the years like there has been in the past. So it's pretty much just fleet management and maintenance from here on out. Same with all of our carb restrictions. We're through the worst of it. We do have a couple of vehicles and a couple pieces of equipment on low use exemption, and we manage around that. So this just kind of lays that out for this coming year. And then, George, you want line 15?
Yes, line 15, that's our servers. As you know, we're working on potentially building a new building. And that would also include part of the grant funding from FEMA through CalOES is the equipment well, can I say upgrade, but equipping of the server in that one EOC room. So really that item under 27 and 28, 40,000 would really is just a placeholder, but we'll kind of be moving that out further. We will be bringing over some of our newer equipment. That's our Tyler, our VM, our GIS, and our domain server. So that's just a placeholder. It's a big item for replacement. So it's really a placeholder. We'll see what that looks like once we're in that building, if we're in the building.
I'm sorry, in the 8.5 million for the building, do we have furniture, fixtures and equipment included in that? Or is that gonna be on top of the 8.5 construction cost?
So that cost estimate was mentioned that furniture and furnishing, like you had mentioned, fixtures were all included in that. But it's changed, right? So we're kind of revisiting what those costs would be. And the only way to kind of determine what that cost is to go out to bid to kind of see exactly what those components are. We do have a plan for interior design, and that includes furniture and things like that. So
Thank you.
Okay, I'll pick up on the smaller portion of this, the parks portion. Pretty much everything that we had budgeted last fiscal, we just kind of pushed all of that out. So you'll see in the first section, that's our enhancement and expansion section. The first one, the construction, that's for the actual 14-acre parcel that, you know, contingent on if we ever get grant funding for that. And then the enhancement portion, that is the grant funds and then also the district portion of that we're looking to spend. And then if we go down to the Civic Center, the 2.8 is the government funds portion of the Civic Center building. We took the pole, if we go down to line 4, the pole off of here, we're just not ready to do any type of pole or anything like that. So we just went ahead and moved that. We're, you know, out a few years to our parks master plan, once we have our stuff really, the expansion done and the enhancement and stuff like that. Going down to line 5, it's the rehab of the old fire station. We're just gonna push that out. Obviously, we haven't done that yet. And then the solid waste study, also push that out. We don't have enough data on that yet to conduct that study. And mentioned the Parks Master Plan, and then really the only 2 other changes on here were pushing out the solid waste vehicle. We have a truck purchase scheduled for parks this year. The vehicle that we're replacing is well over the 11 years that Sean mentioned. And then we moved the community center roof from our repair and maintenance plan to this capital plan because we're going to be capitalizing it. And that's it.
So if there are any questions, this would be the appropriate time to ask. We're not asking for acceptance of the plan tonight. But the plan is to add this to the agenda tomorrow night. If there's any changes, we could make changes that are necessary, but otherwise it'll be added to the agenda tomorrow night since we did not have public participation tonight per legal counsel's direction.
Right. Okay. So any other questions or changes? No? All right, so then I guess review is over. Let's see, moving on to item 4, action items. No action, we're gonna approve it tomorrow, hopefully. All right, well, with no further business before the board, we will adjourn at 5:30 PM.